Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of Speaking Steagles, the premier Pennsylvania pro football podcast. I am Nick Vete, joined by Ricardo Martinez-Baz. And Ricardo, we are 12 weeks through the NFL season. It is flying by, dude. It's ridiculous how fast the season's going. I mean, you look up and we're already we're in December now. Today's December 1st.
Yeah.
So we've got about a month and one game in January left of the season. So it's getting down to crunch time for all these teams, including the Pittsburgh Steelers and Philadelphia Eagles, who we will be talking about today. Both of them getting wins in Week 12. So we will break down those games and look ahead to Week 13 as well. But first, Ricardo, I ask, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm pretty good, man. 4 days of work in baseball, and now it's college football time with some big games tomorrow and today, actually. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot going on, dude. But yeah, we're getting to the real crux, the final push for regular season. It's just crazy how, like you said, how fast this has gone. So, but how are you doing, man?
Flies by. I'm doing well, man. I mean, it's interesting you bring up college football because, I'm not nearly as big a college football fan as the NFL. But, this weekend, the conference championship games, I always tune in for just because, the stakes are so high with who's going to win and go into the playoff and who's going to not win. And really, if the playoff expands starting next season and with conference realignment, this is probably the last time we're ever going to have, conference finals be as big and as important as they are. So, yeah, definitely an eventful time in sports, and eventful for the Eagles and the Steelers as well. The Steelers first game without Matt Canada, popping off a little bit, and the Eagles playing another game down to the wire, going to overtime against the Bills. And let's start there, man, because I know you have some strong feelings on this. We were texting about it a little bit. Just a really crazy win. I'm not going to say much more because I'm curious for your kind of raw reaction here. So let's hear some of your takeaways.
I'll just start with pure reaction. I mean, just looking at the first half again, similar to the Chiefs game a week ago, the Eagles started off very slowly. They really struggled offensively. The Bills had their number, and it's just nothing. I mean, I'll also say Lane Johnson didn't play. He woke up with a sore groin the morning of the game, so that also kind of had some effect on how the offense performed early on. Jack Driscoll stepped in. The first drive alone was absolutely atrocious. It was 3 straight pass plays that were all kind of intermediate to deep routes instead of trying to get the offense in the rhythm. So, and that was a disaster because Jack Driscoll he was asked to come in late first off, so he wasn't really in the game plan necessarily. The Eagles were coming into this thinking Lane Johnson would be in, but Jack Driscoll in the first 2 pass attempts, he just allowed a pressure, and Jalen Hurts had to throw it away both times. And I was like, man, again, here we go. It's going to be a long day in the first half. It was, overall 99 yards the first half. That's just abysmal.
I think you even said it was the Bills just beat them the first 2.5 quarters.
Yeah, they were out coached. Sean McDermott had the defense clicking on all cylinders. They just shut down the Eagles entirely. And I don't know, maybe part of that's also just on the offensive play calling, which for whatever reason, it just had the last couple weeks has been kind of iffy, and I don't know why. Because it seems like this team gets very streaky, which isn't a good thing. Starting off really slow for a certain amount of time, the first half, last 2 games, you can't really, it's not sustainable, and you can't expect to come back every single time. The Eagles were kind of fortunate that, some penalties were called, and then a blocked field goal, another missed field goal in the second half. So the Eagles, the fact that they were even, still in the game at 17-7 at the half with 2 ugly turnovers again in the first half. Jalen Hurts interception that was pretty similar to the one he threw against the Dolphins too, except this one didn't turn into a pick six. Literally was an RPO play, and for some reason, instead of just throwing it into the turf, I don't know, Jalen Hurts just threw it straight into the defender who deflected it, and then it was picked. But then the handoff towards the end of the the first half was just, I don't know what happened there with him and Kenneth Gainwell. I think that was also meant to be an RPO, and it just Jalen Hurts hesitated and wasn't on the same page as Kenny Gainwell and set up. I mean, both those turnovers led to 14 points. So that, I mean, again, they were fortunate to only be down 17-7 at the half. And I don't know if you have anything to like ask about that specifically or just like,
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, for me, I still kind of lean back to the fact of like, all right, like they struggled so mightily early on, and it's like, I guess it's just that thing, and we've talked about this like week in and week out. It feels like almost like a broken record, but it's like, when are they just going to put together a full game from start to finish where
yeah,
they play like good quality football? You know, it's like even the Steelers in this game against the Bengals, which we'll talk about, like they played a full game. They didn't get into the end zone as much as you need to beat better teams. They need to be more efficient in the red zone, which we'll get into that when we talk about the Steelers. But it's like they still played a complete game from start to finish, both on defense and offense. And it's like it feels like we just haven't seen that from the Eagles.
yeah, it's and then I don't know when we're gonna see it if we are, because it seems like that's just been the story the entire season. Every single game, it's like, I mean, maybe the Commanders game's the only exception, really, because the Commanders defense is atrocious in both games. But in every other game, it seems like they just can't put together a full four quarters. But I guess when it matters most, they find a way to turn it on like they did in the second half. I mean, I think what 4 out of 5 drives turned into touchdowns. Just I, it's I keep saying this too. It's like if you keep the Eagles in the game, if you don't put them away, there is you're playing with fire.
One hundred percent. That
You're,
I
you're
completely.
risking them coming back.
I think that's an important factor to have in the DNA of a team, especially come the playoffs when you may have that adversity. Like the fact that this team is constantly having to come from behind and overcome adversity within games. I think that's going to be huge come the postseason. It's just a matter of like, even if it's not necessarily playing a complete game, like they gotta at least be able to stay close and not let a team kind of pull away on them and bury them. The way that they've left the door open for teams to do that, yet no team has really slammed the door shut on them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll just kind of go through these second half drives. I mean, the second one out of the drive, out of the half, 6 plays, 62 yards, a touchdown from AJ Brown. After they ran the ball 4 times, they finally decided to give the ball to DeAndre Swift. I was like, last week it was kind of the same, or yeah, against the Chiefs, it was kind of similar. It was like DeAndre Swift, is kind of that, like, you need to use him more. Like he was the reason last week that he had some big plays and some chunk plays that really set up the offense in scoring position, and that's exactly what he did in this game too. And on that drive specifically, they scored and made it 17-14. The next drive, 7 plays, 75 yards, 15-yard touchdown, Devontae Smith. Then that ridiculous play to Alameda Zaccheaus in the end zone. I mean, I don't even know how that was possible. They were going backwards on that drive after an interception from James Bradbury. 2 negative plays, and somehow on third down, Jalen Hurts and Zaccheaus. I mean, I don't know how he found it, but
that play was ridiculous, man.
that it just made no sense. That was pretty much summed up the game, really. And then the Bills took the lead 31-28 late. And that kind of goes into the final drive of the Eagles, which I guess I could just break down unless you have something else to say before I kind of get into that.
No, I mean, I don't really. I mean, I guess I'll give them credit for, being able to kind of fight back. I think the weather is also something that, you need to take into factor a little bit. Not that it's like a major excuse, but it was some rough conditions. So even throwing that on top of the adversity of being down at halftime to be able to have the second half they did and just claw their way back into the game and set up what I'm sure you're going to talk about on this final drive.
Yeah, I mean, the final drive, I mean, it was just crazy. They pretty much drove down the field to get into. I mean, Jalen Hurts was trying to win the game, but a couple incompletions. I mean, they managed it like fairly decently, but there was a third and long, like I think it was third and 14 or something like that. An incomplete pass. Then Jake Elliott has to come onto the field and kick a 59-yard field goal in the rain, the wind. And I'm
Like
sitting there.
brutal conditions
It
to
was
have
just,
to kick
yeah, it
from that
wasn't
distance.
just like a gusto. It was like strong winds. Like it was like I was sitting there. I'm like, there's no way Jake Elliott makes this. I know he's whatever that graphic was, like 8 for 8 in
8 for 8 or something like that when it's like tying or game winning drives of like 3 or less. Yeah.
yeah, and I
Something
was like,
wild. I mean,
I'm like that.
incredibly
Okay,
clutch.
I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna jinx him, and he's gonna miss it. Then the Bills called timeout. Curiously, I don't really know why, but I may be trying to ice him, but that never really works with him. So that just gave him more time to kind of warm the leg up a bit, and he just drilled it from 59. And I mean, that was insane. Like Jalen Hurts sitting on the sideline, all like shaking his head. Like
Yeah.
it was one of two things. It's either he's pissed at himself that he didn't win the game, or that Jake Elliott made that. It's one of the two, or a bit of both.
I think he was pissed at himself that he left Jake Elliott in that situation.
Yeah, that's probably why.
I think he wanted to get the offense deeper into Bill's territory. So I think he was pissed off at himself in the offense. It's interesting though. I had a conversation because I was watching this game at work, and I had a conversation with my coworkers I was watching it with, and they were kind of saying like, "Oh, why is he so down? Why is he so down?" I immediately thought like he was trying to win the game. He's pissed at himself that he didn't win the game in there.
Yeah. And I mean, we were sitting there, kind of in, it's going to OT now. The Bills like just took a knee, and then I think this was the funniest clips that came up after
I know what you're
Brandon
talking
Graham with
about.
the
Yeah.
coin toss. Yeah, it was like the Bills won the toss, and then Brandon Graham was like, "Don't matter, it don't matter." It's just like,
Brandon Graham, who was also, I think, like top 3 in that athletic poll of like, they were doing the athletic poll, like best stadium, head coach you most want to play for, like best trash
trash
talker.
talker.
I think he was top 3. I know Chauncey Gardner Johnson won it, but I know Brandon Graham was top 3.
Brandon Graham's number one for me, man. I mean, he knew something was up. He knew they were going to make a stand and keep the, and get Jalen Hurts back on the field, and that's exactly what happened. And that last drive they had, I mean, it was 34-31. They just marched down 9 plays, 75 yards, and then a just perfectly designed quarterback draw to seal the game. And I mean, I was sitting there, I was like, yeah, I was really excited and all, but the back of my mind's like, man, how did we win this game? Like, they had no right
Yeah, man.
again to win it.
Well, I mean, I thought just my take on that last drive, like when the Eagles held them to a stop, I was like, after Jalen Hurts was shaking his head on the sideline for not getting the ball deeper into Bill's territory for Jake Elliott in the field goal and really getting a chance to win in regulation, and then they get the ball back with a chance to go down the field in overtime, I was like, there's no way they're not winning this game. So as
Yeah,
soon as the Bills got held, like I just had a feeling that the Eagles were going to win that one. But I mean, I guess my question for you is it's like, how do you like where are you kind of at with this team right now in the sense that they haven't been able to play a full game? We keep on saying they haven't played their best football yet, but they're still finding ways to win. It's a tough spot, because it's like it's hard to be disappointed with your team being, what are they, 10-1 now?
yeah.
Whatever. So, but like at the same time, it's like, like I guess it's not sustainable, but it's still not a bad thing to have this type of resiliency.
So it's a good question because I mean, for one, I'll say, coming back from these kinds of deficits, the last 4 weeks, coming out of the half, well, for me and like, I just kind of, I mean, I think they're the best second half team, the Eagles. Something like 17 points in the second half on average or something crazy like that, which,
I mean, this game, they had 17 just in the fourth quarter.
yeah. So for one, like, for me, it gives me confidence that, as long as the Eagles are down by like, I mean, if the Eagles are down like even 13 points, there's always going to be that part of me that's like, all right, we can come back from this. We can, I mean, Jalen Hurts, I just trust him a lot at this point because especially this isn't like you're coming back against terrible teams, right? You're coming back against the Chiefs, well, the Cowboys first, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, then the Chiefs in Arrowhead, then at home in just horrible rainy conditions again. And when the Bills were playing so well against you in the first half, and Josh Allen also, I just need to say this, played an absolutely ridiculous game. He played
Yeah.
like beyond, like he was the best player on the field on Sunday. Like there's
Yeah, no,
no
I agree
question
with
about
that, man.
that.
Running it too, bro. He led the Bills in rushing yards with 81.
Oh my god, yeah, that's another topic that I might get to, but yeah, it's just at least it gives the Eagles hope, or at least fans hope, confidence that your quarterback will be poised enough and not like, not crumble in these kind of situations when they're down. And like I said last week, Jalen Hurts has the best passer rating when he's trailing this season. So like the stats back it up, and just the kind of player he is, the kind of person he is, just kind of relentless and really he's such a driven dude. He like refuses to fail. I'll never say die mentality of him, Sirianni. That's also part of like the culture that's within this building, within this team. That I guess I should give credit to Sirianni and I guess the coaches for it, because that's not an easy thing. Like it's not normal for teams to be coming back like this. The only team that this reminds me of the Chiefs. I don't know if you remember like the 2019 postseason when they faced the Texans, the Titans. They were down in both games. I think they were down.
I distinctly remember that Texans game. They were down
I
like
think they were.
28 nothing off the rip.
Yeah, I was gonna say they were down huge that game. They were down in the Super Bowl too against the Niners. They came back and won. That's
Yeah.
sort of what this reminds me of. Obviously, different circumstances, not the playoffs, but still, when it comes to postseason time, you might, if you're in this situation, at least you're, kind of confident that they can come back and still keep it close. But on the other hand, you can't keep starting off slow. That's the biggest thing about this.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of even remember like there was a point in like around this time last year where they hit a lull, and obviously they were putting together complete games a lot last year. But
Yeah.
I feel like I remember a point last year where they were like getting away from the running game a little bit too much, and it was costing them early in games, and they were having to find ways to kind of come back. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't as drastic last year, but that's just something that kind of comes to mind to me on that.
Yeah. I just want to touch on one last thing, and defensively at least.
Yeah.
I know that the defense allowed 505 yards, but if you look at like just some of the passing yards, I know it's like 339 from Josh Allen. Like I said, he was the best player on the field. He played arguably his best game of the season and still lost. And Josh Allen only averaged 6.6 yards per pass, and only 5.5 total in the game, like yardage wise. And that was actually kind of towards the bottom of the league this week. So say what you want, you can grill the defense and Sean decide, but they actually it was just Josh Allen making better plays and just out of pocket or just out of off what's the word?
Kind of like
Off,
off script.
yeah, off script kind of play. Like he just made them time and time again. Like those third and longs, I feel like it was every single time he found a way to get out of the pocket or extend the play. Like he just played really well. Like I can't really fault the defense. It's just one of those games. I don't know. But like overall, I think the defense is getting a little too much criticism. And
I think
overall, they
that's
actually
fair,
played
man.
a pretty solid game. Yeah.
It's like he's a high octane quarterback where, when you're not forcing him into a lot of turnovers, he has the ability to kind of put up, these type of offensive numbers. And, I think it's also part of it. They didn't have an answer for him on the ground running the
Yeah.
ball. I don't know if you want to touch on that at all, but like the Eagles also hemmed in their running backs pretty well. Outside of Josh Allen, I don't think they had another rusher go over like 45 yards. So,
Yeah.
part of that too is like, I guess it's a fault on the defense too a little bit, but I kind of fall back on the fact of if they're just limiting opposing rushing attacks, specifically the running backs to a certain extent, obviously you got to also keep the quarterback hemmed in, rushing the football. But I think just being able to kind of make teams one-dimensional, at least through the rest of the regular season, I think that could be, a recipe for success. And some of the better teams in the NFC, like the 49ers, don't have a more mobile quarterback. So that's not something you're necessarily going to have to worry about as much with some of those better teams.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. It seems like the Eagles kind of have trouble with those mobile quarterbacks, Mahomes. You could even throw Dak Prescott in there. You saw last night there were a few quarterback runs designed and thrown in there. in the fold to kind of keep the Seattle defense honest and on their toes. So, and then Josh Allen, of course. That I mean,
Yeah.
three pretty athletic guys. And I mean, we'll get to Purdy later, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're right on that in that sense that you won't have to worry about mobile QB because Purdy's not Josh
I mean,
Allen.
when you just think about the top tier teams in the NFC that they're going to, face, in January, I mean, Jared Goff's not a mobile quarterback of the Lions. Brock
Yeah,
Purdy's not a mobile quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott, yeah, I mean, he can get out and run, but like you don't think of him as, with the running prowess of a Josh Allen or a
right,
Justin
right.
Fields or Lamar Jackson. So definitely something to keep the eye on. And I mean, that'll be another interesting thing to, look into when they play the Cowboys again later this year. So two other things. I guess we can kind of combine them into one. But Shaq Leonard visiting with the Cowboys and the Eagles.
Oh God, yeah.
How desperate are you to get him in Philadelphia, or are you okay? I mean, it's going to be tough if he ends up choosing the Cowboys over Philadelphia.
It's going to be very tough for two reasons. Obviously, it's a rival, and the other because Zach Cunningham went down injured with the hamstring injury.
Yeah.
It's looking to be at least a few weeks. I mean, you don't mess around with hamstring injuries; those are no joke.
No, I mean, look
Speaking
at how
very
long
scary.
Justin Jefferson's been out for. Deontay Johnson missed like half the season for the Steelers with one.
Yeah,
Minka
so
Fitzpatrick's been out a handful of weeks now too.
yeah, him too. And so it's, I mean, you need to sign him. Like I don't know, Howie Roseman. Like you just need to for those two reasons alone. Like I don't know who
I'm
else
sure
is
he
out
wants
there.
to. I mean, I don't know if one team or the other, has more salary cap room to offer him a bigger contract, but I think it's just going to come down to which team, he'd rather play for.
I mean, if I'm being biased, obviously, but it's like this: the Eagles were just in the Super Bowl last year. It's like I don't
Yeah.
know what more reason. He said, or the report came out that he wants to choose the team that's going to go on a deeper run. Well, you were not going to really know that, but I guess if you're kind of basing it off last year, the Eagles were just the Super Bowl, so I don't know. That's obviously up to him and what he thinks is the right fit, but that
Yeah.
would be a huge blow if we don't sign him and Dallas does. So
According to this biography thing I just Googled, he's from South Carolina, so it's not like he has ties to one area or the other
yeah,
either.
so
So
that doesn't really help
because
either
sometimes you
team.
hear like Texas players be like, "Oh yeah, they have an inkling to play for the Cowboys," but
Yeah,
that's not the
exactly.
case with them.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other thing I wanted to ask you, Zach Ertz, he's out there on the open market, man. Possible reunion in Philly. I mean, we've talked about how outside of Dallas Goedert, this team doesn't have much at the tight end position.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if he's willing to be the second tight end, fine. I
Yeah,
mean, I feel like at this point in the career, I think what is he, 34 or maybe 33? He's like kind of
he's
getting
up
up
there in
there
age.
in age. Yeah. And I mean, he played in Philly for ages, won a Super Bowl, and I mean, pretty much won the Eagles the Super Bowl with that touchdown catch he had, the controversial one against Pay. Whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but that if he's willing to be the number two, then yeah, all right, I'm all for it. And I mean, I feel like he'd want to chase another ring, right? It's
I think I even read somewhere that he said he wants to go to a contender. So,
yeah,
I
why
mean, I'd
wouldn't
imagine a team like the Eagles could be a potential fit. I'd be surprised if the Ravens aren't trying to bring him in with
yeah,
Mark Andrews going down for an extended period of time. So, I don't know. I was just curious, because we talked about, Dallas Goedert was out last week, and there's no real receiving threat at that position for the Eagles outside of Goddard. So,
yeah, and
um,
I think I mean Goddard's probably going to play next week against Dallas, or at least he'll push to
yeah,
come back.
yeah,
But
could
I don't
just
know.
be a nice insurance policy to have behind him.
It could be definitely.
Yeah. All right, sounds good, man. So we will keep an eye. I feel like we'll probably get an update next week. I think Leonard and Ertz will probably have new teams. I think
Yeah,
Leonard said like Monday. I think he wanted to get through this weekend of games before making his decision. So
yeah,
we'll see how that ultimately pans out. But let's move on to the Steelers now. They got the win against the Bengals in Cincinnati, 16-10, man. And is it really that simple for the Steelers offense, dude? Is it really that simple?
I mean, it looked simple, man. Like it was just they looked revitalized. They looked like a
Dude,
competent offense.
it's laughable, dude. It's laughable how well this offense played in the first game without Matt Canada. I texted you, bro. And, people are trying to push back on that first play from the line of scrimmage, the first play from offense for the Steelers being, I believe it was a play action with Kenny Pickett lined up under center, and he hits Pat Fryermuth over the middle, like a 20-yard gain, man. I mean, look, I get that that's not a shot at Matt Canada or anything, but like, come on, that's everything that the Steelers did not do under Matt Canada right there. A throw down the field, exploiting the middle of the field, utilizing play action, lining Kenny Pickett up under center. I mean, come on, man. It's almost poetic in the way that first play unfolded.
Yeah, I laughed at that. I was like, wow, this is like, this really is showing you as like, yeah, this was not me. This is not on Kenny Pickett. This is all Matt Canada. But and that's the discussion you'll probably get into later. But
well, yeah, I mean, let's talk about this offense a little bit because I mean, outside of that first play, I mean, it's just the first game of the season that the Steelers outgained their opponent. So claps for that. They finally did it. They beat up on a Cincinnati Bengals defense that's pretty bad, and they went for 400 plus yards of offense for the first time since week 2 of 2020. I'm pretty sure that was the season that Ben hurt his elbow in week 2 and was out for the season. And they went with Delvin Hodges and Mason Rudolph for the rest of the year. So that's going back quite a ways, bro. And they, you know what? The other thing that was pretty incredible in this game, they didn't have a single 3 and out for the entirety of the game. So I feel like these are all things I've been harping on all year of attacking the middle of the field, outgaining their opponent, putting up the offensive numbers in the passing game, outgaining their opponent, and just like, converting, third downs and not, having these 3 and outs. And they were 8 for 17 on third down. So pretty efficient, almost 50%, definitely better than some of those games where they were going like, 2 for 14 or 3 for 16 or something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's one game against a bad Bengals defense, but it's hard to not look at this and take a lot of positives away from what the Steelers offense was able to do and kind of open up on that side of the ball without Matt Canada.
Yeah, it just seemed like they got into rhythm early and they just kind of kept it going the whole game. And that's
a good way to put it.
We saw spurts of it, kind of spread out throughout games, and it'd be like maybe a drive or two, especially like late in the fourth quarter. It just seemed like that's when they would put it together. But in this game, right from the start, it was just like, all right, it was there. They were clicking. So kudos to Mike Sullivan and
Eddie Faulkner.
Yeah, both of them. Seriously.
Man, yeah. I mean, it's quite the statement for this team. Now it kind of gets into the question of, all right, what does the rest of the season kind of hold for this team? I mean, where they're sitting right now, fifth in the AFC, that first wild card position, man, a relatively easy schedule the rest of the way. Yeah. I thought they found their identity with running the football and their defense has kind of come together a little bit. But I mean, man, Ricardo, if they stay healthy, continue to be able to pound the rock, and they kind of open up the passing game a little bit, this could be a scary team come January.
It definitely could, man, especially with that defense that bends and doesn't break, and it's just all the playmakers. You still got, George Pickens making great plays and Deontay Johnson still being I mean that tandem, that 1-2 duo is still pretty darn good. So I mean, and the fact that Pat Fryermuth had his best game of the season and just it just seemed like he was open every single time he was thrown to.
Dude, he was one of the league leaders in receiving yards last week. I mean, it's
yeah.
I know he was hurt for he was hurt for most of the season, but I mean, still, they really kind of unlocked him for 9 receptions, 120 yards.
I was gonna say, even when he was healthy, it's just like he was never used as much. And I feel like last year, I don't remember a game or very many games where he just jumped off the screen and just like he was just so open.
This was his first game going over 100 yards receiving since college, which is kind of crazy because he has the ability as a blocker as well, but where his bread and butter is being that option as a receiving tight end.
Yeah, pretty darn good one.
Yeah. So the Steelers got him involved, man, and now I said this last week and still holds true. I mean, all eyes are going to just be on Kenny Pickett now, and when you put up this type of game, I think it just kind of goes to show like this is a team that definitely should be able to continue to win some games the rest of the season, and I think that their best football now is in front of them. They're a team that could potentially peak at the right time and be ready to go come the playoffs. So I'm really excited, man. I mean, I don't have a lot to say necessarily, on the game outside of that. I guess I'll talk a little bit about the defense too. I mean, they did give up, a decent amount of yards in the passing game, but one thing I'll applaud them for is they held the Bengals to 25 total yards on the ground. So their Achilles heel all season has been they've been unable to stop the run, but in this game, Joe Mixon and the rest of the Bengals running attack couldn't do anything. So props to them for just continuing to improve throughout the season. And, I've lauded how big of a addition it is getting Cameron Hayward back healthy. And, Keanu Benton has continued to progress. So they're really putting something together on that defensive line. It sounds like Montrevious Adams is even getting healthy too. So he'll be kind of another guy that can kind of get after it in preventing the run game. So it's really all coming together. It sounds like Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be healthy for this game against the Cardinals, practicing in full. So it's an exciting time for the Steelers, man. It's coming together, and just starting to dream about the possibilities of this offense taking another step is huge.
Yeah, this is when you want to click. And also, Joe Mixon had, 8 carries for 16 yards. That's horrible.
Yeah, man.
That's atrocious. I think that might have been their worst run total this season, the Bengals. But
I mean, I was looking into it, man. I mean, really, the Steelers defense played great outside of, it was just a couple of big completions that kind of, I feel like inflated the numbers a little bit in the passing game. I mean, I know Jamar Chase had a big one.
That was unlucky. The one that was tipped. There were 2 that were tipped.
Yeah, there was a couple. Now that you bring that up, I kind of forgot about those too. But
that's the reason the yard was kind of up. So if those plays didn't happen, like it could have easily gone.
Trent Irwin only had 1 catch and it went for like 25 yards.
Yeah, that's just
and I'm just looking. There's a couple guys that just had 1 or 2 receptions, and all of them were for like 10 plus yards. So it's not like it was this drastic, like how earlier in the season a guy like Devontae Adams was popping off for like a bunch of receptions and going well over 100 yards. That wasn't the case in this game either. So I thought the defense played pretty well, man. They did what they needed to do against, a quarterback making his first NFL start in an offense that, obviously is not the same without Joe Burrow. And you know what? If the Steelers had been able to get into the end zone maybe once or twice, if that Deontay Johnson catch holds, which I believe Gene Steratore even said it should have been a touchdown. I mean, we're talking about this game potentially being, the Steelers scoring, 20 to 30 points, somewhere in that range. And then we're getting really excited. So that's kind of, if they can, I'm not saying that this is going to be, the Bengals are a bad defense. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that either. But if the Steelers can kind of sustain this going forward, and the last piece of the puzzle could just be kind of becoming more efficient in the red zone.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the score doesn't even tell everything either. It doesn't tell the full story. It looks like it's closer than it actually was, but Steelers outgained them by 200 yards. So
yeah,
they
really were the better football team in this game without a doubt.
Start to finish, easily the Steelers. That should have won by more, but they still won.
So I want to transition into stock up, stock down a little bit, because like my guys that I have for down and up are kind of also storylines built into this game. Yeah. So I'll kind of start with the Steelers here. Mm-hmm. I have 1 stock down. It goes to Deontay Johnson, man.
Yeah.
You had to kind of see this was coming, dude. And it's like, it's so frustrating, man, because the team is winning. The offense is clicking. They're finally putting up, 400 yards of offense. It's been so long since that's happened. And it's just like throughout the season, man, it seems like it's been a problem with him. And this even dates a little bit back to last year, where he's got that little bit of a diva in him, man. I don't know what it is with the Steelers and these wide receivers. They've all got that little bit of a diva in them. And, whether it's the sideline tantrums or it was the getting into the fight with Minkah Fitzpatrick post-game last week, he just proceeds to be checked out of these games. On that play that the touchdown was called back that he, should have had against the Bengals. The following play is when the fumble occurs and he doesn't run after it to go make the tackle. Now, he said he didn't realize it was still a live play, but you'd think when you see all your teammates all of a sudden hustling back to try and make a tackle, you would at least make it look like, you're putting in a little bit of effort. And I just hate when players do this type of thing where he says after the game, that's not the type of player I am. Well, man, until you show otherwise, I'm going to believe what I see with my eyes, because on the field, that is the type of player you are. And even on that play, before the fumbles occur, He's not even blocking
Yeah,
DJ
yeah,
Turner, who he's supposed to be blocking. That's his assignment on that play, and he's just refusing to do it because he's frustrated about the outcome of the previous play. So, man, Deontay Johnson, I mean, like, I hope it's just a wake-up call because he's got all the talent in the world to be, a top 20 wide receiver in this league. But
yeah,
it's just a matter of kind of putting these personal grudges aside. And I'll give George Pickens credit. Like, he had his issues earlier in the season, but we really haven't heard much out of him the last 2 to 3 weeks. So he's kind
yeah.
of, gonna, followed up with his word of saying like he'll be better and he's going to kind of hone things in. And, though he hasn't put up massive numbers since then, he has kind of righted the ship with his attitude to a certain extent. So I got to see the same from Deontay Johnson moving forward here.
Yeah, this can't keep happening. Like I don't understand. It just takes away attention from all the success you just had in that game and the game following, the game after Matt Canada was fired. It's just like, this was supposed to be like you're supposed to be motivated. You're supposed to be like I mean, the
Yeah.
players were already like, hating on him to begin with before he got fired. Like I don't know. Like just also on that play itself, just play. You're supposed to play with a whistle.
Exactly.
So, and then, yeah, like you said, he didn't block on that play, and there was no intent whatsoever. I don't know. This you would hope that Mike Tomlin has some sort of conversation with them that try and.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
I was talking about this with someone else. I mean, I wonder what the approach is because I read Bill Cowher's book from his time with the Steelers, and he
Yeah,
said you kind of had to go about every player differently because some guys you could chew them out in the team film, watching the film together as a team, and it would resonate with them. Other guys, it would embarrass them, and it would almost make them more kind of spiteful. And you'd
yeah,
really have to instead focus on, kind of coddling their personality a little bit and, calling them out in more of a one-on-one setting. So I don't know
yeah,
how we went about it. Deontay Johnson apologized for it, but the apology is not good enough. You got to show it on the field. You got to be a team player on the field,
yeah.
because that's what I see with my eyes. I also kind of wonder this a little bit, and I'm curious if you think there's anything to it. I just feel like ever since like Juju Smith-Schuster kind of became that TikTok boy of putting
Yeah.
TikToks out there and wanting all the attention on him and causing problems. Deontay Johnson was in that locker room. Chase Claypool was in that locker room. I don't know if George Pickens was there at all, but I mean, like, we've kind of seen issues with him in the past, man. These Steelers wide receivers all kind of have these issues popping up, and I don't know. It's just frustrating.
Maybe it just rubbed off on him when they were all together. I don't know. I
Again,
mean,
it's just me speculating a little bit, but
potentially, but yeah,
at the end of
you
the day,
never really
I just
know.
need Deontay Johnson just be better, man. Just be a team player
Yeah,
on the field. Put your talent for the better of the team. That's all I
exactly.
ask for.
Yeah,
Um, all right, enough with that doom and gloom because the Steelers did have, a really good game. So my stock up, Kenny Pickett, I've been hard on him, so I give him a stock up, 278
yeah,
yards in this game. He was 24 for 33 and had a 97.8 passer rating. He didn't throw a touchdown pass, but I still thought this was his best game of the season. I thought he was just very deliberate with his decision-making and accurate with his passes. And, I don't have much more to say on that than, you know what, I give him a stock up for having a real good game after, a couple of duds, in recent weeks. And, how much of that is attributable to Matt Canada, we'll continue to see that week in and week out. But in the first game without him, it was certainly good.
yeah. I mean, it's sort of what we saw the end of last year when you had the run game going. You saw Kenny Pickett get more confident as the season went on. So I feel like you got some of that back in this game. So yeah, it's just a matter of really sustaining that and growing from it and continuing to develop from that. I mean, me personally, I think it was Matt Canada, but
Yeah. Yeah.
well,
And
yeah,
I, and
like you
I
said,
do too for the most part. But
yeah,
Kenny Pickett's the one that needs to be evaluated now. He did his job in this game. So next up, we talked about him, Pat Fryermuth. Best game, arguably of his career. No touchdowns, but like I said, first game going over 100 yards
yeah,
since college. So, the Steelers offense finally attacked the middle of the field, and now something I want to see more get into the offense is I want to see Allen Robinson get more involved from the slot in the middle of the field. I want to see George Pickens. Let's diversify his route tree a little bit. I mean, remember when the Steelers had that win earlier in the season where he ran that slant route and Kenny Pickett hit him just as he was getting hit by a defender, and he took it to the house for whatever it was, a 60-yard touchdown. I want to start seeing, George Pickens. I know he's a deep ball threat. He can get down the field and win those contested catches, but, let him get some of those routes over the middle and see what he can do, separating from receivers that way. And then my last stock up is also Najee Harris. I just want to give him a little credit because he had a good game here. 15 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown. So he kind of carried the load in the running game this week after Jaylen Warren had, 2 weeks in a row of being the main guy. So a lot to be excited about it on the offense here.
How about what's his name? The safety, Trenton Thompson, is that his name? I believe.
Oh yeah, he came up with an interception in this game, didn't he?
Yeah, I feel like he's also been playing fairly decently at filling in for Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, man. I mean, he started the last 2 weeks because Minkah and DeMonte Casey have been out. And I mean, he was a guy that caught some attention in training camp. I remember talking about him a little bit because he had a couple interceptions during training camp and everything like that, and it kind of fizzled out. But I mean, he had 5 total tackles in this game. And yeah, I'm pretty sure he had the interception as well. Yeah, he did have the interception, which he read pretty well. So yeah, I'd give him credit, man. And just to have, him kind of step up and fill that void. I'm glad you brought him up. I didn't have him on here, but he definitely deserves some love as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So should we go over to the
Eagles now? Yeah.
All right. Oh man. I feel like I always have so much to say about these, but all right, I'll try and keep them short. Stock down. I mean, I'm gonna go AJ Brown because, well, I mean, I know he scored, but his yardage has been down the last 3 weeks, but that's also in part because defenses are kind of focusing on him a bit more. But I feel like maybe the Eagles can scheme him open a bit more or find different ways to get him the ball. But his production is kind of fallen off. But I feel like it's just kind of a lull. It's just kind of after that 6 or 7 game stretch of 125 yards like that. I mean, that wasn't sustainable, obviously, but just kind of that, like I said, defense is kind of focusing on him a bit more and making other receivers beat him.
And I think now is kind of a good time to give him that stock down because those first couple of games that were down, and even the game, I think it was 2 weeks ago that he had just one catch. It was like you still know how dynamic a receiver he was, and other guys were starting to get their share of it. But even still, I mean, I'd still make the case he's top 3, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL this season. I think it's hard to argue against that, but it is fair when you have this lull for an extended period. Yeah, the stock comes down a little bit, and it's not just on him. It's on the scheming as well, like you touched on.
Yeah. And I guess my second one, I was going to say the first half offense, but we've already touched on that. And I guess I'll say the linebacker room just because of how thin it is now. Like I said before, Zach Cunningham probably out for a few weeks with the hamstring injury. And now you're really down to Nicholas Morrow. And who was it? Christian Ellis stepped in as more of a special teamer, and he looked lost in coverage. There was that one touchdown allowed on like a slant. I think he was supposed to be like in a specific zone, and he just went up and totally lost the ball. I don't even know. He just totally didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And the Eagles also just, I believe, activate or on the they put Ben Van Summerman on the active roster, so he's an undrafted free agent. So like I said, there's a kind of a lack of experience in the linebacker room right now. So that again, kind of putting emphasis on why the Eagles should sign Shaq Leonard. But again, we'll see. But he won't be there obviously for this game against the Niners. But it's just something to keep an eye on.
Do we have any updates on Nakobe Dean's injury?
No,
I mean, it's not like you can really bank on him, man. He's been hurt all year, but this is definitely one area of concern for the Eagles is this linebacker room, no doubt.
I mean, I think that's what I said was the biggest concern coming into the season. So I said that and safety. So yeah, I mean, it hasn't really changed, at least on the linebacking front. But I guess
how about part of it too is I was watching that Monday Night Football game, and man, TJ Edwards is really kind of he's keeping it going with the Bears, man. I think they said he's their leading tackler this year, and he's really stringing a couple of good seasons together here. So good for him, but you could tell the Eagles definitely miss him a little bit.
Yeah, he was the leading tackler last year. So yeah, we definitely are missing him a bit. But suck up Jake Elliott easily. I mean, really don't have to say why.
No doubt, man. I mean, like just his celebration too was so hyped. The way he just gets down there and just pumps it in there, man. I love that guy, man. He brings a lot. I've liked him since his rookie year when he drained that 61-yarder against the Giants.
Yeah.
I wasn't even really invested in the Eagles. I was just a Steelers fan from New York, always rooting against New York, the New York football team. So, just seeing him hit that and then going into, middle school or high school the next day, whenever it was, and rubbing it in Giants fans' faces.
Yeah,
I've been a fan of him ever since, man. He's so clutch, dude. I mean,
he
top five
is.
kick. I think both of these teams, man. I mean, we got to appreciate these kickers while we have them. Chris
Yeah.
Boswell and Jake Elliott are two top 5 kickers in this league, without a doubt.
Yeah, it could be top 3 with Justin Tucker kind of falling off a bit this year, but
Yeah,
um,
man.
my other one stuck. Or actually, I didn't even say this. Sorry, the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week for the 3rd time this season. So I obviously deserved it. My second one, I guess, really my last one. Devontae Smith, 7 receptions, 106 yards, a touchdown. Just continuing to play well. With defenses focusing on AJ Brown so much. He's had to step up these last few weeks. He's had at least 99 yards in the last 3 or 4 games, and a touchdown as well in the last 3 or 4 games. So, yeah, answering the call, answering the bell. Kind of stepping up when he's needed. So he's been making some
man.
big
And
plays.
I mean, we've talked about it. We know how good he can be, and you've kind of harped on this, even when I've questioned a little bit this season. Like, he'll have those games where he can be the main guy and really kind of have a big blow up game. So he's been playing some real good football recently for the Birds.
Yeah, man. Actually, hold on. One more. I'm just throwing Brandon Graham in there because he said he for one, the trash talking, and he also notched the only sack for the Eagles in this game. But he set the franchise record for most games played for the Eagles, 189, surpassing David Akers, the former kicker of theirs. So I just wanted to throw. I love BG. I love that guy. He's just
there you go, man.
Been doing it for so long, since 2010, man.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so
all right, sounds good. So let's get into week 13 a little bit and preview these matchups. I could start with the Steelers. They're at home this week hosting the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, first and foremost, off the rip, the Steelers got to win this game. I mean, they're the better team. I mean, it's simple as that. I mean, the Cardinals defense gives up the 3rd most yards per game to opponent running attacks. So Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, I mean, it's kind of been both of them different weeks, being the guy and getting things done. And I think that's going to kind of be the game plan here is go in and, kind of build things off of your running game, establish it early, and just kind of let that set the tone against this Cardinals defense.
This defense is atrocious. Let me just say, there's so many stats I looked into. They're like top 10 worst, or like in most categories. So I don't want to say this is an easy win, but offensively.
I think that this game comes at a great time, because it's like when you see how much success the Steelers had on offense last week, it's like, hey, let's continue that. Let's continue to open up the middle of the field. Let's continue to take some deep shots, and let's see if they can punch it into the end zone a couple more times and really kind of have a real nice offensive output, a well-rounded offensive game like they did last week, with the touchdowns also potentially coming. So that's what I'm looking for. And I mean, really, man, is there any way that this Cardinals team kind of stays in the game if the Steelers offense takes care of business? I mean, I know Kyler Murray's back, and obviously that's more of a threat than, what the Cardinals have their quarterback otherwise. But I also just look to the fact, the Cardinals just got blown out 37-14 against the Rams, who the Steelers beat in the first half of the season, when the Steelers, had all these problems that were going on. They couldn't do anything on offense. Their defense was giving up tons of yards against the run. I just think that the way that the Steelers defense has come together has really continued to get better. There's no single wide receiver that I'm super scared, even with Marquise Brown there. I mean, he's not a true number one I'm afraid of. I just think as long as, Kyler Murray doesn't have a career game against them, I think overall the Steelers stack up. The Steelers are just the better team here.
Yeah, top to bottom, man. The only thing the Cardinals are good at is running the ball. And it seems like the Steelers have kind of figured that out a bit over the last few weeks. So, I mean, if you stop James Conner and the rushing attack and keep Kyler Murray in the pocket, not letting him escape, seems like he's just like a child running away from his parents or something. But as long as he doesn't do that, as long as they don't do that, the Steelers will win this game easily. Seriously.
Man. I mean, I really don't have much more to say on specific matchups or anything. I just want to see them really put together a solid game start to finish and just beat up on these Cardinals, because they are the lesser team. And the Steelers, I mean, this is the point in their schedule, man. They're really starting to figure things out and get this train rolling in the right direction. And I don't see any reason why they can't continue to do it against the Cardinals here. So
They will.
yeah, I'm glad we're in simpatico on that.
Yeah.
So let's talk
Easy.
about the kind of the bigger matchup here. That's the Eagles and the 49ers, a rematch of the NFC Championship game. So what do you have your eye on in this game?
Oh God. What don't I have my eye on, dude? Like the bad blood between these teams. I mean, from the NFC Championship game, just how much like crying and whining from the Niners and all the clapbacks, all the dissing amongst the players. I mean, it's just like there's just so much hatred, man. I mean, most of it's coming from Debo. I mean, on 3 different occasions, he was like, one, he was like, "Oh, James Bradbury's trash." There was like, uh, if Purdy was playing, no, he would have won. The Eagles got lucky and all this. I mean, I don't know. It's just so much trash talking, dude, and it pisses me off too. That I mean, that's obviously going to be, trying to avenge that game and think, Purdy's healthy now, and maybe don't block Hassan Reddick with the tight end this time. Like, and he won't get injured. Like, like I'm so like super invested in this game, dude. Like, I don't like the. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but like I'm looking forward to this game more than I was with the Chiefs. Like, I just there's so much on the line on like playoff seeding. I mean, the Eagles lose this game, then and they lose to the Cowboys potentially, then it's the NFC East is wide open. Like,
Absolutely, man. These next 2 games are the 2 most important games for the Eagles this season.
It's yeah, man.
You know, I mean,
It's
I'm not saying anything crazy there, but it's like even looking ahead to the rest of their season after that with Seattle and the Giants twice. Brian Ramos's Giants twice. This is gonna be this could really establish the playoff seeding, and this could make or break. Also whether they win the division these next 2 games. And the Cowboys have been playing well. They already got to win this week on Thursday Night Football. So with
yeah,
a
man.
loss to the San Francisco 49ers here, the Cowboys will be right there with an opportunity.
I thought for the Seahawks really had me for a bit. I mean, I was like they might pull this off. Like there was always just watching that game was like, there's no way they pull this off, and of course they didn't. I had some hope, but no, they didn't. But anyway, getting back to this game, I mean, this is a 49ers offense that has a ton of weapons, but they rely on Christian McCaffrey a lot, not just running the ball, but out of the backfield. And so I think he's the player you're going to have to look out for and really focus on, not going off, because it seems like every single game he scores a touchdown in some form or fashion. So, and the other thing with that too is like, the Eagles' rush defense has been the strength the entire season. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but because it's definitely not. But if you can really limit Christian McCaffrey, and it kind of takes some of the play action out of the game for Brock Purdy, and maybe forces Purdy to have to throw a bit more. And I'm not saying this offensive line is bad by any means. I mean, Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the game. But apart from him, who am I really afraid of on that offensive line? Not knowing really. I mean, every single one outside of Trent Williams has a PFF grade below 60. And the right tackle, Colton McKivitz, has allowed how many sacks? I mean, 4 sacks, I believe, on the season. So he's definitely the weak spot on that side. And I think the other thing too is when you're defending these speedy receivers and Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, I think you really have to disrupt the timing, because that's really what this offense is kind of predicated on. That's what they really do well. Timing is so huge in Kyle Shanahan's offense. So get up to the line of scrimmage, like seriously, like be physical with them. I don't know. They're not like, I'm not gonna say they're not DK Metcalf. They're not like just ripped to shreds, like they're not shredded guys, but they're definitely threatening in the sense of their speed and yards after catch and all that. But you can disrupt the timing and have Purdy hold the ball a bit longer, like maybe a half second longer, maybe the pass rush can get there. So I'm not really worried, like I said before, about Purdy kind of extending plays with his legs. I mean, like he's somewhat athletic. I'm gonna give
Yeah,
him that.
that's not his game though. Not in the same way that
Exactly.
it is
That's
for
that's
Josh
not
Allen.
like another element that this offense uses. And I mean, they use a lot of motion. I mean, it's definitely like top three in the league or something like that. But the Eagles just got to be disciplined, and it kind of reminds me a bit of the Dolphins game. Kind of, I'm going to say they're kind of similar. Mike McDaniel was on, and Kyle Shanahan were on the same staff at one point, so
Yeah.
um, I mean, there's some similarities there, but
I
man,
think the
it's
biggest
tough, dude.
matchup to watch that you talked about was, it's going to be no easy task, but can this, defensive front, specifically Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and the rest of that, interior defensive line contain, Christian McCaffrey to a point where you're just kind of forcing Brock Purdy to beat you. And again, they've still got the talented receivers to do that. We've talked about the struggles of James Bradbury this season, and you're going up against a really good tandem in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. But I think if you can put the ball into Purdy's hands and limit Christian McCaffrey to an extent, that's kind of going to be the Eagles' best shot here to really disrupt this offense.
Hey, James Bradbury's coming off his best game, 5 passes defense last week, the interception. He did pretty well. Darius Slay also fared pretty well too. I mean, they kind of both were struggling a little bit early on the season, but it seems like they're starting to turn a corner a bit. Maybe age hasn't quite caught up to them yet, but that's certainly encouraging and hoping that they could build off of last week. So, yeah, I mean that's what to look for. At least defending them offensively is that's a totally different story. Um, man, this team is I mean, it's one of the better units. It's probably top three in the league. If I mean, in terms of they're first in a lot of stats, dude. They're first in total defense, first in points per game allowed, first in interceptions, first in rush defense. So I mean, across the board, they just have a lot of talent. But perhaps losing Ufunga could be a little. I mean, maybe you can somehow exploit that. I forget who the backup safety is, but maybe you use that to your advantage somehow. But I mean, the one thing I will say, you can't start off like you have been the last 2 weeks. You can't expect to be down 10 points and to come back against this Niners defense. Like, maybe I'm overhyping them, maybe I'm not, but
No,
this
I mean,
is,
I think when we talk about the idea of like, you can't let certain teams bury you when you get off those bad spots. Like, the Bills didn't bury them last week when the Bills got
yeah,
off to that lead. They could have, they didn't. Kansas City, didn't score a touchdown in the second half in their loss to the Eagles. They didn't bury the Philadelphia when they had a chance. Like, this is another team that has the ability to bury the Eagles if the Eagles get off to a bad start. It's just going to be a matter of, can the Eagles just get off to a better, first half than they have in past weeks. And also, can they keep it close if they do have struggles to the point, and, can they kind of keep the 49ers from, potentially burying them?
yeah, and the Niners can definitely do that. They did it against Seattle last week, and I mean, it was close. It's I think in the first half, but then they just pulled away. So you can't let that happen. That's just you got to get the balls to your best player. Like get the ball to your best players. DeAndre Swift, Devontae. Did I say Hold on, did I just say DeAndre Smith? No, I didn't. Right, I said Swift. Right.
I thought you said Swift.
I
Yeah.
said Swift. Okay, because DeAndre Devontae. Let's. I just realized they're the same initials, but you got to get him to and AJ Brown too. You got to find a way to keep him open. Like I said, I don't know, and you can't these RPOs. Like last year, they were so good at them. This year, for some reason, Jalen Hurts isn't reading them as well, and a few of them led to turnovers. And I don't know. Either you take them out, or Jalen Hurts, you got to be sharper on those because they're going to lead to sacks or just negative plays. Like seriously, those were such a weapon last season, and it seems like once they get it going, like I said, this offense is kind of streaky. Once you get those RPOs going, or just the offense going, they're really hard to stop. But it's really just a matter of getting them into rhythm early on. Don't do these deep shots like on the first like 3 play. Don't pass every single time like you did against the Bills. Like it's just not going to work. But and I'm not saying don't air it out either. I'm just pick your spots, but just get them going early. Like seriously, I don't know what else to say. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, there's gonna have to be a mix for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough though. I don't know. This I don't know what the over under is in this game, but I don't know. It could be the under. But
Well, one other thing. I mean, that would have been a good spot to transition here to the picks. But one other thing I just want to mention real quick too is Lane Johnson, full participant. So getting him back for this week's game is also going to be huge for the Eagles. Outside of that, I mean, there's a couple guys that obviously you've talked about Zach Cunningham and Fletcher Cox is dealing with that groin injury. So we'll see how that kind of unfolds. But having Lane Johnson back against this defensive front is going to be huge.
huge. I mean, that front is. I mean, Nick Bosa, Chase Young.
Yeah,
Um,
Javon Hargrave. I mean, even though
yeah.
he's not rushing from the outside.
No, but still, like he's. Of course, I mean, he knows this offense too. But maybe that's an advantage for the Niners that he knows how. I mean, he was on the Eagles last year, so he practiced against a lot of these guys. Maybe there's something I don't know, but yeah, a lot to look for.
And definitely a huge matchup. So let's talk about our predictions for this game a little bit. Let's start with Philadelphia. They are plus 2.5 underdogs at home in this matchup. What do you think about the final score, Ricardo? What are your feelings here? And those odds, according to FanDuel, plus 2.5.
Dude. I don't know, man. I keep doing this reverse jinx thing. And maybe Vegas knows something, but the Niners are coming off 10 days of rest, the extra rest, and they're very healthy. I don't apart from Hufunga, but dude, this could be the game they lose. I
mean, we talked about the stretch, man, after the bye. I mean, they found ways to win the last 2 weeks, and now they're kind of in that next section of this really tough 4 or 5 game stretch. Since their bye week. It's not out of the realm of possibility that this is the week that they lose, but also being home dogs in that hostile Philadelphia environment, definitely something that they got going for them as well. And that crowd's going to be fired up for this one.
I'm just going to say the Niners win 24-20, so they will cover. But I do see it going either way. If I'll say this, if the Eagles start off slow, like they have the last 2 weeks, they're not winning this game. They're not going to come back in the second half if they're down 10 points. They're just not going to. So, you just gotta find a way to keep it. I mean, the other thing last week I forgot to say is there were a lot of third and longs for the Eagles because they were throwing the ball a lot. But if you can get the ball in third and manageable, it's always 1st and 9 for the Eagles. The tush push is just such a weapon. So if you can get in those short yard situations, extend drives, then I think they can win this game. So it's just depends on how they start, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be something big is, the first, really, I think the first like 20 to 25 minutes of this game are going to be huge. Not necessarily going into halftime, but I think just the first quarter and even the start of the second quarter is going to be huge. The Philadelphia, the plus 2.5, the home dogs, man. I mean, it's like if I was, big into the gambling aspect of it, I'd say, that's kind of huge. But, given Philadelphia's resiliency, man, and just their grit and finding ways to win, if they can just keep it close for most of this game, I think they have the gusto to get this thing done. And I'll take Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles over Brock Purdy and the Niners. That's how I'm ultimately going to pick this, and we'll just have a little contrast here. I'm going to go with Philadelphia here, and I'm going to pick it 27.
Jeez,
no, I'm going to pick it 28 to 25. Philadelphia's going to win.
I mean, wow, that's fairly high scoring.
Fairly high scoring. I think it's going to be a great game.
I feel like it's going to be a slugfest, but that's just me personally. I don't know.
All right, let's talk about the Steelers a little bit. They are minus 5.5 favorites at home against Arizona. I mean, I can start this off. I think the Steelers are going to win. I think they're going to continue their offensive prowess from last week. I'm going to have them winning 27-13.
All right, I have 24-16. I mean, yeah, they're winning this game, dude. There's no reason they shouldn't.
Yeah, man. And I mean, both of us were kind of spot on with our the Steelers won 16-10 last week. You had them winning 18-13. I had them winning 19-13. So we were kind of right in that range. And here we're kind of right in the same range, too. I mean, there's no excuses for how well this offense played and just how putrid the Cardinals defense is. The Steelers should come away with a dub here.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, man. You have any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Oh, I'm gonna be a nervous wreck on Sunday. I'm
Hey.
gonna be losing my mind.
Well, you try and not stress yourself out too much, and hopefully we'll have a Steelers win after the 1:00 window. That'll make us all a little bit happy. I mean, I know that's not gonna calm your nerves that much, but it'll definitely make me happy if I have a Steelers win in my back pocket to go in and watch this, game that could potentially be an NFC Championship preview. So, all right, man. I think that's everything we got. Until next time, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Speaking Steagles, man, hopefully we're coming back with some positive stuff to talk about next week. Big games this week. We'll be back next week to break it all down. Until then, peace out. Bye.